welcome to the Triple Threat Podcast. My name is William Ezell, and alongside me is the ever-present Mikhil Vats. Sorry for the lack of podcast this week. It's been busy with travel and all, but we're back, and the show's better than ever. We're introducing a new topic or a new segment in the show. We want to get your opinions on sports right now. Ask any questions you have. We will answer all of them in the next episode. Just drop it down in the comments below, and we will respond to it. Whatever you think. What we think about your team, just let us know and we'll answer it. We'll answer all of your questions. But moving on to some more recent news, it has emerged that Urban Meyers lied during the press day about his defensive coordinator's domestic violence. So, what are your thoughts on that, Mikhil?
Yeah, he's such a great coach, especially for that university. And when he denied it, I mean, it was obviously disappointing for all of the Ohio State fans and all of the Ohio State, all of the Ohio State staff, especially for Zach Smith. It's obviously disappointing for a great defensive coordinator producing guys like Marshawn Lattimore, Denzel Ward, and when Urban Meyer is put on the paid administrative leave, that is saying something because he's been one of their best coaches for so long, and who knows when he would have stopped. But right now, I think it's time for Urban Meyer to leave the university. But who knows what will happen? It's honestly just really disappointing and tough to talk about.
I mean, he should have come out to the authorities when he heard about the situation because
Exactly, yeah.
he later admitted that he did lie and that he did know that it was going on. But I just think is that he should have taken this responsibility. I don't think this is a fireable offense. I think that Ohio State can get over this. Urban Meyer made this program relevant again. You can't just dismiss a guy like that. He's so important to the state, and I just think that it would be dumb for them to let him go. Like you saw how Ohio State put him on administrative leave. They didn't just they're paying him while they're looking at it. They're not just gonna be like, okay, we're gonna let our investigation do what they're gonna do. We're not gonna pay you during this, but they're paying him, so they're definitely gonna keep him on for the long run. They got 4 weeks till the season starts. I think they'll get over this. They won't make the top 4 and make the playoffs, but it's a program, and they're a great well. But I kind of think of this as a kind of a little ramped up version of Bountygate, the Saints defensive coordinator paying his players to injure players. But the thing is, Sean Payton later came out and said he takes responsibility for it because I'm the head coach. This happened in my team, and that this shouldn't have happened. Urban Myers hasn't taken that responsibility yet. He hasn't owned up to, yeah, this is my fault that this happened. I should have fired him a long time ago. He just said, yeah, I lied. Big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think he'll come looking out of this so clean. It might hurt him getting a job in the future, but he's still a great coach.
Yeah, and like you said, he hasn't admitted, he hasn't come out, he hasn't said, "Oh, this is my fault." He's just trying to protect his guy, but that's exactly what he has to do. He has to come out and say, "All right, this is my fault. I'm going to take ownership." But he's just trying to protect. He's just trying to protect Zach Smith, and he said that it was a very tough call. And as you said, they put him on the paid administrative leave, not firing him yet. And honestly, I hope that he doesn't get fired. And don't get me wrong, he's a great coach. I think he will end up getting fired if he does not take responsibility for this action. But he should not get fired just because all he's done for the program, like you said, he's made them relevant again, producing great guys. JT Barrett, who is now with your New Orleans Saints, will, and plenty of great defensive players and offensive players. Ezekiel Elliott, Marshawn Lattimore on the defensive side, and Denzel Ward. So you can't forget about what this guy has done for the university. So it's a tough call for Ohio State, but we'll see what will happen in the next 4 weeks.
And there might be developments by the time you're watching this, but as of time recording, he has not apologized. He has not taken responsibility for this yet. But moving on to some other news in the big time in the NFL, Sam Darnold has been announced as the third string guy. I can't see this staying that way for the whole preseason. I think since he's going to be playing third string, he's going to be playing against lesser opposition than he did in college, and he'll thrive and take that number 1 or 2 spot. But you can't forget that he is playing behind a guy who played great for the Jets last season and a guy who, when he was healthy, was a Pro Bowler in his only good year or only healthy year in the NFL, in Teddy Bridgewater with the Vikings. And I really think that Darnold's going to work this number 1 spot. I don't think it's going to be given to us, some people say. He is a prospect, but I don't know if he will start day 1. But that's just my opinion. What do you think, Mikhil?
I honestly am going to have to disagree with you somewhat, just because you said that you believe that he will get a 1 or 2 spot in the preseason. I don't think anything will change in the preseason. I really don't think his preseason career will matter as far as we know. But Darnold obviously had a tremendous college career at USC. He put up big numbers, 7,229 passing yards in at USC, a 64.9 passing percentage, and 57 touchdowns, which are tremendous stats for Sam Darnold, and he could have been, and arguably should have been, the number 1 pick for the Cleveland Browns. Instead, they took Baker Mayfield. So the Jets obviously have a franchise QB in the future, but they also have guys like you said, Teddy Bridgewater, Josh McCown, and they recently said today that Darnold is their number 3 guy, Bridgewater being number 2 and Josh McCown being the starter. But I think Darnold will get the starting spot later on in the NFL regular season, just because of his potential and what he may become. And many people compare him to Aaron Rodgers just because he's so clutch. He's also a very mature guy. If you watch him on interviews, you see him with reporters. He's a very mature guy. Graduated in 3 years at a great university, so I think he'll be a starter. And got it. I'm gonna have to go just a little bit past week 8.
But you have to think about this. When times aren't going well, a team like the Jets, who have one of the weakest rosters in the league, the fans are going to be calling for them to put him in. Look at Tebow when he was at Denver. Things weren't going too hot, so they were like, fans were chanting, "Put Tebow in." We came to see Tebow play. Even
Yeah,
Tebow at the Jets, when they weren't doing too well after coming off their couple of AFC championships in a row, they're like, "No, we're not doing too well. We want Tebow." Even though Tebow wasn't the best option at the time, they still wanted to see him. And going back to the depth, Josh McCown had a great season. He had his best season ever, registering his most passing yards and most touchdowns, having almost 3,000 passing yards and 18 touchdowns in only 13 games when he got injured in week 13. So I think that he could still be a viable starter for the team. But if anyone I want to see play is Teddy Bridgewater. I think this
yeah.
guy has loads of potential. I mean, look at that year he had when he got that Pro Bowl appearance in 2015. He played all 16 games, had 3,200 yards, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, stats that are way, way worse than Josh McCown. But Josh McCown's been in the league since 2002. Teddy Bridgewater's only been in the league for 4 years. This guy has potential, while Josh McCown's starting to regress his talent and skill. And the things that he did for that offense in Minnesota when he was healthy, he was a phenomenal player. And I think that they're going to be unlucky if they trade him away if Sam Darnold does win the number 1 spot. Because the Jets did confirm that they'd be willing to trade away Teddy Bridgewater if Sam Darnold wins the number 1 spot.
And I
And I think
like that move by the Jets just because I think Teddy Bridgewater, the signing, was a mistake on a 1-year, $10 million deal, because when you have a top 3 pick, and when you have quarterbacks like Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen going in the first round, top 15 picks, you have to know that you're gonna need to get a QB, and just because you need a franchise QB, you need someone to lead you. You need someone to lead you into the postseason. And that's why I think Bridgewater was a mistake, because they knew that they could get a QB like Darnold. And now they're just going to have to use him as trade bait. And I'm talking about Bridgewater. They're going to have to use him as trade bait, because Sam Darnold is going to get that starting job over Bridgewater. And it's unlucky for Bridgewater after he had that terrible ACL injury, because I believe that he can still become an elite quarterback, and he obviously was a Pro Bowler with Minnesota in that tremendous year that he had with them. He's still an elite quarterback in my eyes, but it's going to be tough for him to find a job just because of that injury, and especially now that he's going to be his job is going to be taken over by Sam Darnold. So it's tough for a guy like Teddy Bridgewater.
And I think that's going to make him play with a fire because he knows his job is on the line, and that's going to make him play better than ever. And I think that the Jets should start him in the first couple of weeks just to get his value up if he plays well. And he only had 3,200 passing yards that season because he took 44 sacks. In his 2 years of starting at a QB level, he took 73 sacks.
Okay, I and don't get me wrong, I really like Bridgewater, like I said, and I think that he should start over McCown, and Darnold should be in the number 2 spot, making McCown the number 3. But it's different call for the Jets coaching staff. But you said that you think Darnold will start over Teddy when I ask you the question if he will later in the season. But once Darnold starts over Teddy, Bridgewater is not going to be able to bounce back after that. Sam Darnold is going to be their QB for the next 10 years.
I feel like any team would be better with Teddy Bridgewater. An old team. I think the Patriots should be looking at a replacement for Tom Brady. The Saints should be looking at a replacement for Drew Brees. The Giants need a quarterback, so I could see him go. That'd be an exciting offense. Teddy Bridgewater, Saquon Barkley, Odell, and Evan Ingram.
And I like that. I can't disagree with you, which is why I think that Teddy should be somewhere else. And I just think it'll be a better scenario for him just because he's not going to get a starting job for a long time in New York, and that's why he's only on a 1-year deal. But he could even sit on the bench the rest of the season and become a free agent, hopefully sign with a team maybe like New York or New England. We'll see.
It's time for one of our mainstay segments in Breakout or Bust. We got 3 Joshes this time: Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, and Josh Okogie. 3 first-round Joshes, all with immense prospects, immense talent, and have a high ceiling. And I can only see them doing well. But let me know what your thoughts are, Mikhil. Breakout or Bust? Let's start with Josh Allen in Buffalo.
All right, I think Josh Allen is going to be a breakout. He slipped to the 11th pick. Correct me if I'm wrong.
7th.
7th? Was it to the Bills? Yes. Bills, 7th pick. I think he's going to be a breakout. Cleveland was debating between Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen with that first pick, and I think they made the wrong choice going with Baker Mayfield. Josh Allen in the combine, he looked phenomenal, throwing out 70-yard bombs to wide receivers. And in college, he went to a very small college, but still played well and was able to stand out in front of the competition. I think he's going to become one of the elite quarterbacks in the league later on in his career. But, he's struggling in training camp right now. I've been following a lot of teams in the NFL within the training camp process, and Josh Allen is one of those players that are struggling. But it's different for Josh Allen because for him, it's going to take a year or two to go from the college game to the NFL, just because he came from such a small college. But once he gets up to that NFL level, he's going to be one of the best QBs in the league.
I have to disagree with you. I think it's going to be a bust.
Really?
Josh Allen, his completion percentage at Wyoming, he's not facing the best competition. His completion percentage was 56% last season. A person who doesn't throw 60% or more in college, his skill's not going to translate well to the NFL. If you're not accurate then, you're not going to be accurate now. It's like a shot in basketball. You can't really fix that. People like Westbrook and John Wall trying to fix their shot, they can't fix it. He's not going to translate well. Sure, he has the best arm. He's the less refined Pat Mahomes. If I were to take somebody that around that same spot in the draft, I would have taken Pat Mahomes. And I think that if the Bills were looking for a future quarterback, they should have been looking for it last year. Pat Mahomes or Deshaun Watson going in their 10 and 13 spot respectively, and they took traded up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to take him at 7. I think that was a reach. I think he's going to have a hard time adapting from such a small college to the pros. But we saw Carson Wentz do it. Big guy from plains in the cold, going to be playing in super cold conditions in Buffalo. Just going to be interesting to see how it pans out.
Can I ask you about Patrick Mahomes really quickly before we move on? I want to ask you if you think he's going to be a breakout or bust, because I come from a family where they were born and raised Kansas City, and they're huge Chiefs fans. So we talk about Patrick Mahomes all the time. I honestly think he's going to be a bust. I just want to get your opinion on that.
I think Pat Mahomes is the real deal. He was only getting like one snap in practices last season, but the coaches were taking videos of him and sending it around the league because he was throwing dots and gold. Every time he touched the ball, he has the Midas touch. Everything he touches turns to gold. Game against Denver, he had that rushing touchdown. He had the passing touchdown. He looked good that game, and they were benching their good players like Kareem Hunt and Tyreek Hill. So he wasn't working with the depth they had. Not even Travis Kelce. He didn't really have options, and still he excelled in that game. So I'm really excited to see how he does with Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, and Travis Kelce, along with Kareem Hunt, who receives out of the backfield. I think that this team is going to be a real contender.
All right.
Moving on to a fellow rookie in Josh Rosen, that is, taken.
I think it was 10th to the Cardinals.
Well, whatever it was, he was the 4th quarterback taken in the draft, and I think that was a steal for his position. I think he's going to be a breakout. He's taking over for a great player in Carson, who might be a Hall of Famer, arguably with his time at the Bengals and the Cardinals. But coming into a receiving core with an aging Larry Fitzgerald, and I just think he's going to do wonders this year. It might be a learning curve like Jared Goff and Carson Wentz had a bad first year. Not bad, but like okay first year, not living up to the expectations. But I think that Josh Allen will be a star. He didn't have the greatest record at UCLA. He had a lot of coaching changes, but you don't have to win in college to be a good player in the NFL. You look at people like Johnny Manziel, who were great in college. They've done nothing in the pros. Yeah. He threw 4 picks in the first half for the Montreal Owlets. I mean, college winning doesn't translate to NFL winning. That's why I think that Josh Allen will do well. It kind of backfires against my argument against Josh. I mean, that's why I think Josh Rosen will do well. It kind of backfires my argument against Josh Allen because he didn't win well at Wyoming. But I just think that Josh Allen's going to do well in the Cardinals. And coming in with a new receiver in Christian Kirk, hometown team, he's going to want to play. He's going to have the urge, the desire. This is his hometown team. He's going to be having great numbers this year. I think that's going to be an exciting rookie connection. Rosen.
People don't realize that Josh Rosen had better college stats than Sam Darnold did. He had 9,340 passing yards, 59 touchdowns, and that's why I think Josh Rosen will be a breakout just because his college stats are precise. They're very outstanding, very underrated, and obviously he's an underrated guy in the draft, slipping to which was the 10th pick. I just found out he was the 10th pick to the Arizona Cardinals, playing with a guy like Larry Fitzgerald, one of the greatest receivers of all time. Fitzgerald's gonna teach him a lot, and I think he could mature because of Fitzgerald.
Moving on to our final Josh, we're going on to Josh Okogie, the Georgia Tech star last season in the ACC, declaring after 2 years in college. His numbers in college are insane. We just yet to see if that translates to the NBA. Breakout or bust, Mikhil?
Josh Okogie, and especially being a guy from Georgia, born and raised in Atlanta, he was obviously a guy that I was watching in college because he went to Georgia Tech, and he put up big numbers, like you said, in 2 seasons, 18.2 points per game in his first season, and then 16.9 in his second season. But he's going to be mixed it up. 16.1 in his first season, 18.2 in his second season. but I think he's gonna be a bust just because of the team he is with. And I know you're a Georgia Tech guy, and I know you're gonna disagree with me, but I need you to hear me out. Jimmy Butler is gonna leave Minnesota. He's gonna get a chance, but he's not gonna be able to play to his full potential under a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, who will also bring in other guys to Minnesota. And he's also playing with uh guys like Derrick Rose, Taj Gibson, who are core assets to a team. And I think once Josh Okogie is finally a starter on the Minnesota Timberwolves, they'll be in a rebuild mode like the Atlanta Hawks, the Orlando Magic. And I don't think he's going to be a very, very valuable asset to any NBA team just because of where he was drafted.
I'll have to disagree with you because I'm a Georgia Tech fan, huge fan. Saw around 10 games this year at the McCamish Pavilion and at the ACC tournament in New York. I have to say, I've never seen a player at Georgia Tech as good as him since Marcus Georges-Hunt, and he is better than Marcus Georges-Hunt. He is 4 times better than Marcus Georges-Hunt. Marcus Georges-Hunt was watching. He was at Georgia Tech to watch Josh Okogie. I was at that game. I was also, and Chris Bosh was there. Everyone's excited to see how this guy does. The only 2 players that averaged more points per game than him 2 seasons ago were Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum. That is some high company to be alongside with. That's higher than a big man in John Collins, who was taken by the Atlanta Hawks in the last year's draft.
Yeah, and John Collins is great.
He's great. So Josh Okogie being better points per game wise than that, he had 1,000 points in his first 2 seasons, which is a feat that not many college players can boast about. He shot a career 44% from the field. He's not the greatest shooter from the 3-point line, but he can drive, he can dribble, but he can fill in at point guard as long as being a shooting guard. And he averages 2.5 assists last season, and the only players that averaged more points per game than him last season was Marvin Bagley and Tyus Battle. And I think Tyus Battle is going to be another star in the pros. But I think the Timberwolves are getting a steal here. He's going to be going into a good team with Anthony Towns, Jimmy Butler, and Derrick Rose if he can finally get past this knee injury. And if they re-sign restricted free agent Marcus Georges-Hunt, who's been averaging like 20 points per game, 25 points per game in the GBA, and has been dropping 30 points consistently and dropped the 20-point game in the NBA with limited minutes. He's been productive in the time he came in. And if Josh Okogie is that much better than him, then I can only see him earning a starting spot this season. And I can see why they reached and took him in the first round, because he was projected to go in the second round, and they took him in the first round, 20th overall. I think the Hawks missed out on taking him. Hometown player. They picked him. They should have picked him at 19, and he fell to 20, and they missed him.
See, I don't like the idea of him starting this season because even if Jimmy Butler leaves, this is a guy I forgot to mention. There's Andrew Wiggins, former Rookie of the Year, guy out of Kansas. People said he was going to be the next LeBron James, but we all know he's not going to be as good as LeBron James. But he's a great player already, and he's only going to get better because he's so young. I don't see Josh Okogie starting this season, and I only see him starting later on in his career when the Timberwolves are in rebuild mode and they don't have stars like Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns. That's why Okogie is not in the right place to start off a young career in the NBA. You see guys like Mikhil Bridges, Miles Bridges go to teams like Charlotte and Phoenix where they can work for a starting spot. But Okogie can't do that when you have guys like Andrew Wiggins, who you have to be loyal to, Jimmy Butler, who you also have to be loyal to, considering he wants to leave and can't play with Karl Anthony Towns. So it's not a good fit for Okogie.
I mean, opinion's opinion, but I think his game's got to do the talk. MLB Trade Deadline just passed this week, and who are your winners or losers out of this?
You know, we haven't been able to talk about the MLB Trade Deadline. Of course, it's been such a big topic, but we only have our shows on Mondays and Tuesdays. So we had to wait a while to talk about this, and I had to tell you, this is one of the biggest deadlines I've ever seen. A lot of teams getting in on this. I'll give you my winners and losers. I'll start off with the winners. Have to go with the New York Yankees. They're always acquiring guys last minute to make World Series runs, and they got starting pitcher in J.A. Happ and a tremendous closer who they can rotate Aroldis Chapman with, in Zach Britton from Baltimore Orioles. Another winner is the Pirates. They acquired an elite starting pitcher in my eyes, Chris Archer, one of the best in the league. And he's also very young, which people don't realize, and he's only going to go up in his career. He has a bright future ahead of him. So Pirates not only got a pitcher that can help them now catch up to the Brewers and the Cubs, but they got a pitcher for the future as well. So that's good for Pittsburgh, a team that will look to go into the future. Another winner, Philadelphia Phillies. They're obviously in a tight race for the division with the Atlanta Braves, and they acquired arguably a franchise catcher in Wilson Ramos. So I thought that was a great move. He's a great addition to the team. Was an All-Star this year, and one of the most humbling guys you'll meet, and an icon for the MLB. And last winter, I have to go with the Astros. They acquired a tremendous closer from the Toronto Blue Jays, Marcus Osuna, and they needed a closer. They obviously have great starting pitchers in Dallas Keuchel and Justin Verlander. So I thought it was a great addition to finally get your closer and see if they can get their second World Series title, make it back-to-back. I'll move on to the losers. Chris Archer is a loser in my eyes not because of his playing style, but because of the team that he went to. He could have gone to a team that had a chance for a playoff, a chance for the World Series, such as the Braves, the Phillies, the Yankees. And instead he went to a team like the Pittsburgh Pirates, who probably won't make the playoffs this year. So I think it's disappointing for Chris Archer, especially because there was all this hype about him going to a team that may need him later on in October, but instead he went to the Pittsburgh Pirates. So that's why he's a loser in my eyes. The Braves are also a loser just because they did not make the moves that they should have. Of course, they acquired Kevin Gossman and one other Orioles pitcher. I can't remember. I think it was Brad Brack. Obviously, a good relief pitcher and a decent starter. Could turn out to be a steal. Many people think Gossman could be. But they could have gotten a guy like Chris Archer. Of course, they were in the talk, but they needed to be. Honestly, a guy like Dansby Swanson could go because he was a former number one pick in the I want to say it was the 2015 draft with guys like Alex Bregman, Andrew Benintendi. But Dansby Swanson has turned out to be a bust so far, so he could be a valuable asset in terms of trade bait. And my last loser, it's an iffy one. They could be a winner for holding on to these guys or a loser for not letting them go. The Mets with Jacob deGrom and Noah Syndergaard. But I think that they're definitely in rebuild mode, and we obviously talked about that in a previous show. So they're definitely in rebuild mode, and I think they could have gotten some young prospects. Tim Anderson was a guy who I was looking at from the Chicago White Sox, who they could have gotten in a trade that could have gone with Jacob deGrom and Noah Syndergaard. So I think they could have gotten rid of those guys. But a wild trade deadline and a wild finish. But it was interesting to see the way things went down.
And on to our final topic of the day. NFL announced their Hall of Fame class of 2018. 8 players, predominantly defense. It's been a defensive year. We're seeing Urlacher, Ray Lewis. We're seeing Brian Dawkins get in. A lot of first ballot players.
Yeah.
But the main topic out of this is going to be Terrell Owens, T.O., going to Chattanooga, wearing his gold jacket, having his speech at 3:17, signifying the 370th player inducted into the Football Hall of Fame, not being a first ballot. He's incredibly mad about this. He's making a stance against the selection committee, against how this whole process works. you can't. Maybe someone that was working with the Niners when T.O. was playing, or working with the Cowboys when T.O. was playing, or the Bengals, and now they're on a different team, and they can't give a selection to T.O. because they're not a representative from the team that he's on. Say someone from the Niners staff was now on the Dolphins, so he can't give T.O. a recommendation for the Hall of Fame. It was a debate, either T.O., Randy Moss, who's the best receiver in the league at the time, in the early 2000s. But if Randy Moss is a first-time ballot and he gets in, and Terrell Owens doesn't get in his first time, he must be fuming about that. And he had his own speech, and he's rambling on. As we're recording, these speeches just wrapping up in Canton, Ohio. Every player deserved it out there. I mean, I can see why all of them made it to the Hall of Fame. Terrell Owens, 16,000 passing yards. Receiving yards. Getting 150 plus touchdowns in his career, and 50 of that coming from Garcia. He wasn't getting help from his quarterbacks. He's had to deal with some pretty awful quarterbacks in his career. Sure, he had the twilight of Steve Young, and he did play with a pretty decent Carson Palmer and Tony Romo, but those are average players. He's only played with one great. While Randy Moss has played with Brett Favre, and he's played with Tom Brady and elite quarterbacks, but can't say the same for T.O., so I can't see why he doesn't get first ballot like Randy Moss does. What are your thoughts on the Hall of Fame, Mikhil?
Like you said, if you're Terrell Owens and if you're in his situation, you have to understand why he is furious, and he has every right to be furious. Terrell Owens himself and Randy Moss, they have such similar careers. Obviously, Randy Moss had 156 touchdowns in his career, which ranks second on the all-time list, and 15,292 yards, which ranked fourth on the all-time list. And Terrell Owens is so similar. 3 TDs, third behind Randy Moss, and nearly 6,000 yards, like you said, which ranks second on the all-time list, only behind the greatest receiver of all time, Jerry Rice. So if you're Terrell Owens, you have every right to be furious, but he's got to feel relieved that he finally got into the Hall of Fame, getting that golden jacket. But a lot of, like you said, the defensive guys stand out this year. You got guys like Urlacher, you've got Ray Lewis, you've got Robert Brazile. So it's a great Hall of Fame.
Can't forget Dawkins. He revolutionized
Brian Dawkins, Philadelphia Eagles guy. Yeah, you can't forget him. He's great defensive players. So it's really interesting to see how this whole Hall of Fame class shaped up this year, and mainly because of Terrell Owens and Randy Moss. The whole drama between those two. You forget about all these great defensive players, and you forget about the executive Bobby Beathard, who led the Redskins to 5 playoff appearances in 6 years, winning them 2 Super Bowl trophies. One of the greatest GMs of all time and one of the greatest scouts. So tremendous class, and congratulations to all of those who got in.
And you gotta wonder, who's the next class? Who's the next great? Who's coming out right now? Stay tuned and find all of that out in the next episode of the Triple Threat Podcast. Remember, leave your questions in the comments down below. We want to hear what you think. We want to answer what you're asking. And remember, signing off from Atlanta, Georgia, I'm Ezell.